No one cares about Aqualad. Why? It's fucking Aqualad. I don't need to tell you the stigma around Aquaman as a character. It's persisted by non-comic book readers and even the common fanboy that Aquaman is just the guy who talks to fish. Surely, they now know he's king of Atlantis, but how long did that take to set in? While Aquaman's story, since even before Peter David had political intrigue and dark character beats, the usual fan of Aquaman won't know absolutely everything. Or worse, they started with John's. So, with all that in mind, I want to stress that even with adaptations in Teen Titans, Batman the Brave and the Bold, and Young Justice, the original Aqualad struggled to maintain any sort of relevance. No conversation around them like the other founding members of the Teen Titans, a team he's come back to again and again. To me, that's a tragedy, and I want to explain why. Like any tragedy, the beginning is always rough. Garth, as I'm going to be calling him the rest of the video, is an exiled prince, just like his mentor. Only instead of being born on land and coming to sea for his birthright, Garth was born in the ocean with no idea what his true purpose was. The son of King Thar of the Idolists, a pacifistic clan of undersea sorcerers, an unborn Garth was used as a conduit for sealing away his necromancer uncle, Slizath. With Thar dead from the ritual and the possibility of his son being the way for Slizath to return, Garth's mother Bera was cast out of their city of Shayeris, wandering the seafloor until she reached Atlantis. A former queen turned commoner, Bera gave birth to Garth in the hopes of raising him in secret. However, her plans quickly changed when she saw Garth's purple eyes, a sign of not only his sorcerer heritage and ties to his father, but also an Atlantean sign of genetic deformity, a callback to their imperfect human ancestors. So, Garth was cast out of 2 kingdoms before he could even crawl, being raised on the seafloor by the wildlife around him. In the Golden Age, Garth was a child when it happened, and he was so deeply afraid of fish until Aquaman came around, he could barely stand. So it was much more understandable why he was cast out of an undersea kingdom. The post-crisis origin just turns Garth into Aquaman meets Tarzan, and it's all the better for it. Eventually, Garth would free a trapped Aquaman during his many patrols underwater and became his esteemed assistant, not only being there for when he found the amnesiac assassin Mera, but also for his marriage and the birth of his first child, a dedicated second hand to a kindred spirit, one who brought him back into the city that abandoned him and made him a royal advisor. Sure, prejudice would persist given the superstitious nature of Atlanteans, but Garth had a position of power, one that he leveraged to be able to go ashore and explore the world beyond the sea. The only problem is that, for a long time, he could only breathe for a single hour out of water. So even when he formed the Teen Titans with Dick, Wally, and later Donna, he could only help so much. This made a then 15-year-old Garth somewhat insecure. Sure, he had friends his own age who accepted him, but he wasn't nearly as respected. Same went with his time spent with his mentor, who became increasingly more busy with his first child and control of the Kingdom of Atlantis. Garth, even back then, knew how irrelevant he was, and so did the fans. So with enough outcry both internally at DC as well as externally from readers, the impossible happened for Garth. He got some pussy.
Nice.
Meet Tula, Aqua Girl, the girlfriend of Aqualad who, after being led astray by a Dr. Porpoise when Garth tried to go solo, became part of the Aquaman family and in turn inseparable from Garth. As the 4 other founding Titans had romantic trysts amongst themselves, infighting constantly, Garth had Tula to give his life meaning. Even after Aquababy was killed by Black Manta and the marriage of Arthur and Mera fell apart in the first major divorce in comics, Garth and Tula persisted, even surviving a near-fatal attack from Hive when Garth was no longer a part of the new Teen Titans, joining them in revenge against those who would poison the Earth's water. Garth's life, despite being abandoned and disrespected constantly, had some kind of meaning, some reason to keep going. And as cheesy as it sounds, it's love. The love of his mentor, his friends, his lover. Even if he wasn't very strong on his own, he'll always have backup. So, for what it's worth, Garth's life is pretty good. Or it was, until Crisis. Like how Earth 2 Robin and Earth 1 Barry Allen died tragically in the war against the Anti-Monitor, Garth also lost someone in the Crisis. And it was Tula. Drowning due to irradiated water by the supervillain Chemo, Garth struggled to carry Tula's dying body to Atlantis, hoping that their advanced medical technology or the help of any of the other multiverse's heroes could bring her back to life. But they don't. So she dies. And unlike Supergirl or Barry Allen or Huntress, she isn't coming back. This death changes Garth's character going forward. Very soon after the crisis, he would be kidnapped by Mento, former leader of the Doom Patrol, and subjected to psychic torture in the hopes of gaining his secrets. But his torture only pushed Garth to move on from the death of Tula, or at least to not have it solely define him, seeing himself reflected in the tortured, love-lost Mento, and in turn using his own psychic control of sea life to duel with the esteemed mentalist. With this renewed resolve, Garth attempts to rejoin his mentor's side. However, he's first treated with hostility, and then later on, barely respected by some of Arthur's subjects. But he persisted, attempting to move on from Tula by flirting with Arthur's mysterious new lady friend, Dolphin, who doesn't reciprocate, and neither does Arthur, or the Titans, or anyone around this time. So when he thinks he spotted Tula during a mission with Arthur and Dolphin, hoping to find anyone who cares about him, do you really blame Garth? Turns out this was a mistake. The girl he found was a mermaid named Letifos, who despite being flattered, results in Garth being crucified by her tribe, seemingly killed as a sacrifice. Arthur is none the wiser to this, as well as the fact that his own father, the former King Atlan, has whisked Garth away into his own pocket dimension, training Garth in sorcery so he may grow closer to his birthright and in turn become defender of the Undersea. This is where Garth would not only gain control over fire and ice, making him a wizard, but also his own codename, Tempest. He would return to Arthur aged up with a sick facial scar, stealing his rebound girl for good measure, before returning to his home of Shayeris to fulfill his destiny. It is here in Shayeris where Atlan is kidnapped and Garth is fooled by a zombie version of Tula, under the control of Slizath in the hopes of being freed. None the wiser despite Letifos' warnings, Garth accidentally frees his uncle as he creates a necropolis with his undead army in Shayeris. Garth is saved by the survivors of Shayeris, including the mother who abandoned him, Bara. Told the truth of his origins and how powerful he truly is, Garth goes, "You know, the Titans would have solved this for you," before Raven sneezes somewhere out in the wild, feeling like she's been called out. Garth leads his people into battle and kills the imposter version of Tula, sealing Slizath away for good as his people celebrate finally being free. With the power of several hundred wizards at his command, Garth visits the grave of Tula and tells her how he misses her. That despite how long it took for him to grow up, he finally did. He won't forget Tula, but he's finally ready to move on. Heartwarming. Anyways, Garth knocks up Dolphin.
What? What the fuck?
As Arthur tries to woo back Mara, Garth has a shotgun wedding with Dolphin, inviting all the Titans to witness it, but making Arthur his best man. And while the wedding is interrupted by supervillains, it all works out in the end. Garth would return to the Titans and privately fund the team with sunken treasure he keeps finding on patrols. But after the birth of his son Ceridian during a war between his namesake and Atlantis, Dolphin would ask him to settle down. Moving back to Atlantis during the fascist regime of one Lord Hagen, Garth would try playing the family man before once again trying to bring Arthur back to the throne. While they would overthrow the dictatorship and control of Atlantis, Arthur wouldn't return, Mara being the crown ruler, but still very hands-off. While things remained tense and he couldn't hang out with his friends anymore, at least Garth had his family. He had a purpose in the Atlantean court now that Arthur was MIA, and he needed to protect his people, no matter what they thought of him. Then his family died, because the Spectre blew up Atlantis. With Arthur, Dolphin, and Ceridian dead, Garth should have fallen into despair, given up on everything to just wallow, or become a villain like Arsenal did when his kid died. But no, Garth persisted. He took the throne of Atlantis and Mara's place, all in the hopes of rebuilding their city and protecting their people. He is the Purple-Eyed Prince, and he would do anything to make sure the Undersea is safe. But like how a zombie Tula challenged Garth before, a zombie Dolphin would do the same. And this time, it doesn't end well. Yes, Blackest Night, the superhero zombie comic book event, is the last appearance of post-crisis Garth, dying as a zombie, and unlike his mentor, never revived until the New 52. Where, like many of his Titan allies, his origins changed. Now being closer to Atlantis inherently as a member of their mystic society, but removing the birthright he once held dear, as well as the loves he once held in his previous life. While Dark Knight's death metal returned post-crisis continuity to the present DCU, Garth's story hasn't been touched on. His death and Rebirth barely even fit into the storyline of post-Rebirth DC, Dolphin once again a former love interest of Arthur, and nothing more. In the Aquaman books, he's no longer considered the rightful Aqualad, being replaced by Jackson Hyde, who inevitably became Aquaman. In the Titans, he's just a joke, barely even leading the team when Dick got a bullet to the brain and only making a cameo appearance thereafter in Titans Academy. No progression of his character, no plans beyond just keeping him around, no promise of acknowledging what changed in continuity revolving around his love life. Nope, Garth gets nothing. Because no one cares. The tragedy of Aqualad is that simple. No matter how well developed you become in the post-crisis continuity, or even after that, wheels will stall, writers will forget, and you're left with a caricature of the person you care about instead of anything substantial. And if the people in charge of the characters you love don't care, does anyone? Give my goat something to do, DC. Or anyone, I'm not picky. And thank you for watching.